2311 Racing has been under a lot of scrutiny recently, and its owner, Michael Jordan, has been under fire with it as well. His recent moves made everybody question whether he still has it for the sport, and the fact that he invested more than $150 million in the team and is still nowhere near close Hendrick Motorsports goes to show that the critics might be onto something. After the latest performance in Talladega, Jordan has had it tough to defend against the poor performance of the Toyota drivers, and to top that off, his actions after the race pissed off Kyle Petty, as the critic didn't mince words when talking about the entire situation. Bubba Wallace has been one of the most scrutinized drivers after his latest performance in Talladega, especially because he was one of the favorites to win it, but turned out he couldn't even make it in the points. All of the Toyota drivers were mired in the back of the field due to the lack of performance, and the track position of Wallace hurt his playoff run as he failed to capitalize on what looked to be one of the best weekends so far. This race is definitely one of the most, if not the most special one for Bubba, considering the fact that he scored his NASCAR debut win in 2021. Still, his team, combined with the lack of pace from Wallace's Toyota, has ruined every chance he could possibly have, and all in all, Wallace wasn't happy with the fight that he had to put up just to get outside of the points bracket due to a bad strategy call, as he elaborated. An uphill battle, buried. I don't know where we were. Hell, we were at the back by then. So just trying to make something happen. I hate it for us. I hate it for the number 45, because I told him on the restart, don't lift, and we should have just stayed in line and rode it out to the last lap. Maybe it would have been a different outcome, but we were too buried to win the race. All in all, not the day we needed. We put ourselves behind working on a plan. Plans are great with your teammates, but I feel like it hurt us to start, and we got buried back in track position. So you have to fight and claw your way back up to the top, and it took us 3 stages to get there, and we gave it away on the last pit stop. It was even more painful for 2311 Racing because Wallace did admit that he had a lot of hopes entering the circuit, which makes it even worse for the crew and the team to put him on the bad strategy call that they did. After Talladega, Wallace sits 9 points below the cutoff mark as he and the NASCAR Caravan are headed into Charlotte Motor Speedway. Even with 2311 Racing making it into the playoffs, it did seem like they were ready for a lot more, and unfortunately for Wallace and Reddick, they don't seem to be living up to the expectations that were hyped up before the beginning of the entire show. But while Michael Jordan has been one of the most positive influences that the NASCAR world has witnessed from an investment and development standpoint, there are some people who do not read too much into it, even with Bubba Wallace sharing an emotional moment with Michael Jordan after the Talladega disaster. Kyle Petty, for starters, feels like Michael Jordan should have been much harsher on Wallace regarding the emotional moment after the race, as he went on to elaborate. Listen, I don't care whether it's Michael Jordan, I don't. And I don't mean this in a bad way. I've seen Rick Hendrick do the same thing. Walk up to Chase Elliott and wrap his arm around him. Walk up to Kyle Larson and wrap his arm around him. Walk up to Jeff Gordon and wrap his arm around him and just start talking. I take Michael Jordan out of that equation because I have seen other owners do the same thing when a driver has had a day that he doesn't feel like is his best day. But it's gotta be gratifying to Bubba to be in that position, to be able to get out of the car and not have to go in the back door of the truck and kind of slide out without your owner seeing you because you feel like you drove a terrible race. The trouble for 2311 Racing doesn't seem to end here because it seems like Wallace and Reddick were not on the same page regarding the race performance, and as we spoke earlier in this video, Wallace made sure his voice got heard. However, there is another race coming very soon, and the last thing the team needs right now is to dwell over old mistakes because the past is the past, and there is nothing much you can do about it. All you can do is focus on the future, and that future is just a couple of days away from Wallace and his team. However, it seems like the motivation is not as high in his camp and in himself as it used to be before the beginning of the playoffs, because the majority of the hopes were placed on Talladega, and the fact that the race finished as bad as it did for Wallace goes on to show that he may have already waved goodbye to the playoff picture. Elaborating on what he and his team need to do next for the upcoming race in Charlotte, the disappointment was more than visible and hearable in Bubba's voice, as he added, I don't know. We need to go back and debrief and figure it out. But track position was so important. If the bottom and the middle lanes were riding and the pace slowed down enough, you could make the third lane work. But that last pit stop, we had a number we were trying to get for fuel, and we came out 13th or 14th when we were 5th. I mean, it was quite obvious that Wallace felt a little bit more pressure entering into this race than in any other. mostly because he was racing in his home in Alabama, and apart from his first race win being obtained at this circuit, he had the support of the home fans in a massive number. This might be one of the reasons why Wallace pushed to be as aggressive as he was, and according to his spotter Teddy Kraft, this is the reason why drivers in NASCAR are so good, but this is also the reason why you can exit the race as the hurt side, as he went on to elaborate. The reason why guys are good is because they are aggressive. Their spotters are aggressive. Whatever it is, the aggression yesterday is what hurt you. The best thing to do is just sit in the middle lane and ride there, and guys would pull up and you would get one at a time. Furthermore, it seems like Wallace's actions have aggravated Denny Hamlin, who seemed to have applied the tactic that he hoped he would have seen in Wallace as well. As Kraft continued to talk about this scenario, adding, Denny did it from the lucky dog spot, third or fourth, wherever he finished in the race, and that's all he did. He got in the middle lane and he talked about it. He said it. If it wasn't a playoff race, he would be doing what we were doing. Try to make it to the third lane. Try to make something happen. It is safe to assume that 23XI Racing is not in the perfect position right now, and while its owner Michael Jordan was the first ever billionaire to have entered the sport, he is also one of the most criticized team owners for his latest actions regarding the team's development. We've seen what happened with the Charlotte Hornets, a franchise he currently owns in the NBA, and how difficult it was for him to make it competitive, which is a process he is still struggling with. Many experts have linked this failure with NASCAR as well, feeling like Jordan is already battling on too many fronts and he cannot put his full attention to NASCAR and the future of his team in the sport. Be that as it may, a very difficult mission lies ahead of 23XI Racing. Give Wallace a competitive outfit for Charlotte and hope he could survive yet another elimination round, because from what we can see right now, it does look like the team is in a bad place before the last race where they could save themselves for another round. I guess Michael Jordan would need to have a couple of chats with his drivers, just like he did after Talladega, and form some kind of super formula in order for them to survive the crisis they are in right now, a mission that is much easier said than done. Do you think that Wallace will have a proper shot regarding the advancement in the next round of the playoffs? Let us know in the comments below.